Hello, good evening. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Charlotte Gilbride, and I am the coordinator of the Nancy R. Chandler Lecture Series at COCC Foundation. I want to start this evening off by sharing COCC's land acknowledgement. COCC would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land our campuses reside on are the original homelands of the Wascow and the Warm Springs people. They ceded this land to the U.S. government in the Treaty of 1855. The Paiute people were forcibly moved to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation starting in 1879. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Solalo Falls trading grounds, and the Klamath tribes claim it as their own. Descendants of these original people are thriving members of our community today. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. Thank you. Again, welcome to you all. Welcome to all of you. You braved the drizzly cold elements out there to be here tonight, and we appreciate that. It's very exciting to have you all here on this. We have such an interesting and timely presentation this evening. We do want to let you know, if it's not too obvious, that we are recording tonight's program, and all of you as registered attendees will receive an email in the next several days with a link to the recording if you would like to watch it again. First off, I'd like to start off by thanking SAGE for partnering with us on this program. SAGE's mission is to inspire people over 50 to give forward with their time, money, and voice so younger generations can thrive. Their name is based on a Greek proverb that says, "A society grows great when its elders plant trees whose shade they shall never sit in." That's beautiful, huh? It's been a pleasure to work with Pat and Adon on this program. Pat is the Central Oregon representative for SAGE, and you may have seen her at the table out front next to the check-in table. Well, she will be there afterwards, too. If you'd like any information on SAGE, she has some specific really cool volunteer opportunities that are Central Oregon specific needs that she can talk to you about. We also want to thank the Chandler Lecture Series annual sponsors. They are Maybelle Clark McDonald Fund and the Associated Students of COCC. Without those two organizations' continued support throughout the academic year, we couldn't do what we do, which is we bring renowned speakers, lecturers, and experts to our region to deliver broad-based programming on a diverse range of educational and topical subjects. Here we are tonight. Tonight we will hear a presentation by Dr. Marvin Kaiser, and then we will open it up to a panel discussion. And then after that, we will open up the floor to questions from the audience. So if you do have questions, just simply raise your hand, and I will run to you as fast as I can with microphones. It's a little bit awkward, but we want to make sure the questions come up in the recording as well. So we have to have two microphones in front of you to ask the question. And so those are all of our housekeeping things, and now we'll get to what we all came for. I'd like to introduce Dr. Marvin Kaiser. Dr. Marvin A. Kaiser is a Dean Emeritus at the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at PSU, where he served for 17 years. He followed this work by serving as CEO of Mary Woods at Merrillhurst for 5.5 years and retiring from that position in 2016. Dr. Kaiser served as a faculty member at Marymount College as well as Kansas State University. He also served as a Kellogg Fellow, Staff Fellow, and consultant to the United Nations Office at Vienna at the Center for Social Development and Humanitarian Affairs, as well as a Staff Fellow and consultant to the United States Agency for International Development and the House Select Committee on Aging for the United States House of Representatives. He was co-founder of the At-Home Care Agency in Manhattan, Kansas, and he co-chaired Portland's Vision PDX initiative. He continues to serve on many community boards, including the Cedar Sinai Park Senior Living Community, Portland Clinic Foundation, Age Plus, or is that AGE Plus?
No, Age Plus.
Age Plus, the Jesse R. Richardson Foundation, and the Music Workshop. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Marvin Kaiser. Your mic is on. I'll turn mine off.
Thank you. Well, good evening. Good evening to all of you. I'm delighted to be here. And Central Oregon has a warm place in my heart, as I've known many friends here over the years. And I also was born and raised in rural Kansas. So being in the more rural part of the state is special to me. So thank you very much. This evening, what I'd like to do is share a conversation about the gift that living a 100-year life may become a common reality over the next decades. And if so, it will be recognized as one of the greatest achievements in human history. So it's an important perspective, I think, that we are looking at, and hopefully this will become reality, and the indications are there that it will be. But as we begin our conversation this evening, I want to recognize the support of COCC and SAGE for arranging this conversation, and the leadership of the Stanford University Center on Longevity, and our colleagues at the London School of Business. Both of those organizations have given us a lot of material to think about the 100-year life and to reflect on this together. And also this evening, we have a panel, a distinguished panel, I want to say, of experts that we are going to be able to question after they have a chance to present as well. So there is a studied scholarship behind us, and that's what from Stanford and from the London School of Business that has looked at the 100 years life's promise, its implications, and importantly, its challenges for each of us individually and for our society. So this evening, I want to start with a statement that if I learn to do this right. So this is the Stanford Center for Longevity's statement. By the middle of this century, living to the age of 100 will become commonplace, continuing a remarkable trend that saw human life expectancies double between 1900 and the year 2000, increasing more in a single century than across all prior millennia of human evolution combined. Quite a promise. This is from the London School of Business. A child in the West today has more than a 50% chance of living to be over 105. So they upped the ante. By contrast, a child born a century ago had less than 1% chance of living to that age. So what we're talking about this evening is the gift. So this didn't come out of the blue, because what you're looking at here is something that we use about the growth of the aging and the number of people that are involved in that. So this is a century of change, and we talk about the pyramid and the pillar. So on the left-hand side, this is generally the way we have looked at populations across, as they say, all those millennia. A lot of young people, very few older people. What's projected to happen, and we're right on that agenda, by 2060. So in 100 years, all of our kind of age stages are essentially equal. That, and particularly if you look at the top of the elders or old, whatever term you want to use, but that includes the 85 plus, essentially at the same level as the youngest persons. And if you get the Oregonian, you can see the date of about a couple of months ago, there was a headline that Oregon is the oldest state in the West, and it's even getting older. So if you remember this distribution compared to the United States, this is about Oregon. So the top one is we have 15% less children than the average in the United States of young people. We have in that piece over there, the second one is younger folks, that 25 to about 50, and that's young, I think. We call them the creative folks. They move to certain cities because of technology and honestly the party life. So that fits that one. And then of course on the bottom one is when we say we're getting older, that's from the 65 and over. That's a surplus that we have. So fewer younger people, a lot more older people than is in most of the United States. Now, Deschutes County. If you look at this, so we have this 4 pieces. So if you look at the first one, the 2015 one, 18% 65 and over, 24% 0 to 19, 2035, it reversed some. There's something is happening. I don't know if you can predict that in 2050, but by 2065, 25.7% are projected to be 65 and over, and for young people, 20%. So it's the direction that we're all moving in. It was like that first one, the pyramid and the pillar. And this one, I'll just show you quickly. For the first time in U.S. history, by 2034, there will be more adults in the United States 65 and over than there are children. And as you can see, the end game of that continues on to 2060. So the point of this is that we're becoming an older society, an older state, an older country, and this is basically across the board. So I want to get the right slide for this. So the next piece that I would like to talk about is, so this has been happening for a long time. So this is the growth from 1900 of 60, the life expectancy, I'm sorry. So you can see those kind of things in the main. So it's by gender on this thing. So the Census Bureau is about, just want to say what we have here is the Census Bureau is that red or whatever color that is on both of these. We also talk about another way of looking at population, and that's the one above. So you know, life expectancy when you're born. What's the life expectancy? The average of life. That's the red stuff. But what we do in that second one is that we take that life expectancy from 0, but also it's more generous in saying there's something happening between the Census Bureau and other developments, for instance, inoculations, better health care, those kinds of things that are actually going to have an extended life expectancy that the Census Bureau talks about. This one is kind of a repetition of this in some ways, but by 1950, this is the growth in 1950, so about 68, life expectancy was about 68 years. You can see it's projected over, I forget the date on that one, they covered over, I think it's also 2060, so it's what is the number, and I can't read it. 21. Yeah, so, but the other one I wanted you to see is something that's happening. So on this side down here, the annual percent change, ordinarily what happened earlier is that every decade we would add on in a decade like 2 to 3 years of life expectancy. That was kind of the way it happened. But and you see this one up. I don't have a pointer, but where it's under historical, that was a major shift. But as we're projecting out, the growth is some people are saying stagnant about life expectancy. So how do we fare with other countries around the world? Well, it isn't so hot, quite honestly. So Hong Kong has the, and this is 2023 data. So if you look at both sexes, Hong Kong 85.29 years. Japan, of course, is second to them. 1, 2, and U.S. we rank 47th in the country in life expectancy. Didn't expect that, and it's been a change. So if you want to say what's this look like, if you lived in Hong Kong, you although when we talk about life expectancy this way, it isn't about just individual lives, but the odds are that people live 6 more years across the country than that. So more recently, life expectation, and this is what's happening. Life expectancy at birth declined a year in 2021. Now, that was COVID, obviously, along with a year drop in 20, and that had some COVID in it also, leading to the biggest decline in life expectancy since 1921 to 23. So we took a big step backward. This decline was accounted for by the COVID-19, followed by deaths upon accidents and drug overdoses. So it wasn't all COVID. So when you lose that much time, it's hard. Remember I said 2 years, maybe a decade. So to get that back is tough. So what happened is other things came out of this, particularly related to COVID. So disparities in life expectancy by diverse groups. So rather than, we lost white Americans that are in the room. We lost 2.4 years. Native Americans and Alaskans lost over 6.5 years. Hispanics lost four lost. Black Americans lost So that became an obvious piece that we somehow have to deal with. But beyond the impact of COVID-19, why is life expectancy in the U.S. lower than in other rich countries? That's not where we want to be. And so I'm going to have you, whoops, I want to go back to this. Many of the important factors, smoking, obesity, violence, poverty, are not about providing better health care for those who need it, but about preventing health outcomes in the first place. So, you know, we're running in a way the wrong direction. Now, I want to show you an example of this, what Max Roser is talking about. So this is about opioids. Unfortunately, the top line is the United States, and then if you look at all these other states, so we don't fare well on that one. So I mean that's the dilemma now that we're dealing with. So I think I had something I wanted to show you here. So sorry about that. I'm interested in what is happening with education. And there's a headline that I'm trying to find here, and I'm sorry I can't find it, but there is a headline that education, or those without education, without a college degree, are being lost in this. There's almost a 6-year difference between individuals who have a college education and those who don't in terms of life expectancy. So it's an issue around, we talked about healthy aging, but it's also an issue around education more generally. And it's not just about, it is about getting a college diploma, but it's also about what happens with young children. You know, because what we're talking about here is not about just, well, when I'm old, I'm gonna get to be 100. It's a 100-year process for this to happen. So why is this important? Well, at a personal level, every hour, every hour, that's what's in a week. And I just want to say this. So at 70, if we live to 70, this is the hours that we have. Another 10 years is almost another 100 of hours, and that's months and weeks and 100 years. And I say this kind of at a personal level. I just sadly came from my one of our family members died at age 48 this last week. And you know, I was thinking about this because he fought it. Most people that we know, we want more time. We want more time. So this is a responsibility. We were given this gift by generations in front of us. We owe that generation, those generations back. So it's beginning to deal with the thinking about it in some of these terms. Now, the key principle of this new map of life is that healthy aging requires investments, what I just said, in health at every life stage. So, whoops, I got in front of him. So, what has happened, and why this has turned the direction that it has turned in about 1900. For instance, we became much more serious about infant mortality, for instance. If you look at the data on infant mortality, a lot of children did not make it alive, or they died within the first 5 to 7 years. So, so we think about this in terms of that 100-year life. What happens with children? What happens with adults? What happens with older individuals? Now, this was in the New York Times, and I wanted to share that with you. If I can find my stuff here, I apologize. What Dr. Shosky, he was the New York City Commissioner of Public Health. So he said, let's forget about living to 100. Let's live healthier instead. So puts a little reverse on that 100-year life. He said, our country is long overdue for an audacious health goal. We need a fresh approach to talking about health before we can improve it. It goes back to that one frame that I showed you about the impact of things like obesity and car accident, about smoking, is what he's trying to get us to talk about here. So what he is worried about, and what he's speaking about, he says, you know, we've kind of lost our way on this. So what he's asking us now to, or what he's saying, we for instance, we ought to double primary care physicians, because we know more about people with them. We need to we're able to catch diseases early on. We also ought to put our behavioral, our mental health ought to be part of our health, and about what we eat. That's what he's pushing for us to do this. So then we're also, I wanted to say a word about the blue zones. I'm pleased that I think most of you may know about the blue zones, but it's about how do we build healthy communities. And one of the things that I discovered, that here in Oregon we have a number of communities that have adopted the blue zone work. The blue zones come out of an understanding that why is it that there are certain places in the globe that people live, their extraordinary number of people live 100 years of age and older. So Loma Linda in California is the one in the United States. So what is it that these folks do that build healthy communities. And so I put that up there. Just, it's about moving. And they say move naturally. Have a garden, but you're getting up and down. Right outlook. You live life with purpose. You eat wisely. You can even drink. You can even have wine, obviously. But it's the 80% rule. So you don't clean your plate. You stop when you're full. You connect, so that we build community where we're living with each other. And then finally on this, what I wanted, even The Economist is just the recent Economist. It's about living to 120. How to stop slowing of aging. But all of the biochemistry that folks are working on, and the medicines that we're working on, we're hoping that is going to move us in the right direction. Now, whether you're 18, 45, or 60, you will need to do things differently. If we're going to structure our life so that it really works for us. Greater life expectancy is only a good thing in life if life itself is good. So if we're doing this, so I want to talk a little bit about purpose. The Japanese, it's a really important part of their lives, this living life with purpose. So this gentleman, he went to a 25th class reunion, and when he started talking to some of his peers that had gone to school together, and 80% of them that he talked to after 25 years said, we're sad, we're angry, we're wasting our lives. I'm not happy with my life. 20% said, I am, and it's because I decided that I wanted to know what my purpose was or is. And so what he has asked us is all of us, and particularly young people, as they're beginning to think about their next stage in life, who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? What do those people want or need? How do they change or transform as a result of what is? So it's this notion of life purpose that guides us into the next stage of our lives. So as we're thinking about our futures, particularly as we move into the world of work, we tend to think of in this long life about finances. How can I work for 50 years? How can I finance a retirement? But before we do that, what we're trying to, for our students and those that are moving into that work life, is to talk about what we call assets, those things that make us live well or not. But it's about knowledge and skills, networks, our reputations. It is about health, vitality, balanced living. But it's also about self-knowledge and diverse networks that are outside of our understanding. So this is a graph of what generally most of us know about our lives. It's about the three-stage asset flow. So we get an education, we work, we retire. And each of those is where we are in our kind of our present life. That the 70-year life, or maybe the 80 life. And so the question here is whether or not that works for a 100-year life. We cannot work long enough to for most of us at least, to be retired for 30 years or 40 years. So what the Stanford Center is suggesting is this. Rather than 30 years of work being the main course of a 70-year life, for those that are going to be, those of us who hope to be 100 years old when we pass, life will be the main course, and work is a series of side dishes served over the course of many decades. So it moves us from work to life. So this is what's coming for us. It's the five stage flow. So it spreads itself out over 50 or 60 years. So it's about a life of transitions. And you can see that we get more education, we work, but we stop at some point and get more skills. The kind of thing that happens, like at COCC, we work back some more skills, and so we split that out. But the vitality pieces of this are really important. So we keep our families intact, we keep our friends intact, we regenerate ourselves. But also in transform, we know who we are, and we go through that support all the way through. So this is a picture of a 60-year work life. The question of that, of course, is how do we prepare young people to live that kind of life? And is that the kind of education we get as we prepare young people for the life that is in front of them, that 100-year life? So the question, the last question in that sense is, so what's next? So John Kennedy said, while we have added years to life, it's time to add life to those years. Whoops! So, what does that look like? Well, a colleague. Well, first, a colleague of ours said, "What are old people for?" Now he didn't answer it exactly, but he said, "What are old people for?" So, another colleague of ours says that it's a time of life waiting for an answer. What is it that if we live to those older ages, what is it that is for? And he said, so it's what it's looking for is a sense of purpose, and the purpose is to support the generation behind us. That's that is our responsibility. So what does that mean? Well, it means that it's not about retirement. We may not be working on that job. We may have left that back like we just saw, but it's the work that we're about to support the generation that's coming after us. And so it's things like mentoring. It's things like service to others. It's to support people in their own educational endeavors. So now when we get to the things about actual retirement, although the Japanese don't have a word for that actually, they say, what is it that makes sense when one is actually retired? George Valiant, a Harvard medical school leader, says that the basic activities, if you're going to have a happy and successful retirement life, it's about play. It's about learning to play, learning to create, learning new things, obviously, and especially to remain engaged, make new friends. So I want to conclude with, sorry about this. This is a letter about that summation about the life. To conclude, I believe that the life of this woman illustrates most of the lessons for successful aging. She chose loving parents and did not smoke or abuse alcohol. She understood how to savor joy and how to turn lemons into lemonade. She spent a life cultivating her garden, both in California and in Canada. She was able to learn from her children, but she never forgot that biology flows downhill. She remembered that all life is a journey and that the seeds of love must be eternally resown. Finally, she heeded the advice of a psychologist. The real secret of a happy old age is once more in service for others, carrying on to the end of life. A service which on the one hand gives perennial interest to life by making the old man or woman a participant in the life of all of those about him, and on the other surrounds him with love in return. That's our goal in life. Thank you this evening, and I'm sorry that my deck got messed up here, so thank you very much. Okay, thank you. We're now going to bring our folks up, if you would, to the stage. So our speakers tonight, I'm going to start with Sierra Barnes, is the Development and Communications Manager at Bridge Meadows, intergenerational affordable housing nonprofit headquartered in Portland. Sierra earned a BA in philosophy from Pacific University, where she specialized in civic engagement and ethical living. An AmeriCorps Vista alum, she is a board member for Oregon Serves, the state commission that promotes and enhances a culture of service, volunteerism, and civic engagement throughout Oregon. Sierra volunteers her time on the board of a local affordable housing and land use nonprofit and serves on the Pacific University Alumni Association Board of Representatives. Raise your hand.
Hi.
Thank you. Very good. Sarah Hansen is a professor of human development at CCOC, where she has taught since 2010. She earned a BA in Asian and International Studies from the University of Oregon, an MEd degree in higher education and student affairs from the University of Vermont, and an ABD in higher education from the University of Vermont. She also holds a global career facilitator credential from the National Career Development Association. Sarah is passionate about helping students succeed in college and beyond. She teaches courses such as college success, study strategies, and career planning, and she also serves as an academic advisor to CCOC students. Thank you. Very good. And Annabelle Pelham. Dr. Pelham is Emeritus Professor and Founding Director of the Gerontology Program of San Francisco State University. She is also Founding Director of the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence and President of the National Association of Professional Gerontologists. Dr. Pelham has expertise in global issues on aging and gerontology, age-friendly cities, and community development and community-based health and human services. She recently was the keynote speaker at a conference in Ireland focused on making cities more age-friendly.
Hello.
So we're going to ask them some questions. And with whoever wants, one or all of you, why does this all matter? Can you talk about why young people should get involved or they should care?
Sure, okay. Hello, good evening. I'll try to take that on. Well, look around the room. Why don't you take a half a second, look around the room. You are looking at an incredible human and natural resource. Hello. We're talking about experience and wisdom and grace and love. I suspect any question I might ask about anything, there's an answer in this room. I would bet a really good bottle of champagne. and that's why. And that is why. Because our young people will become us, won't they? And I can't think of anything more delightful than us, with all that we have to offer. The energy, the humor, the patience, all of that. The skills, wow, think about that. That's reason enough.
Well, I was going to add something, but you captured that so perfectly. I'm not sure I would have anything more to say to that other than it's something that affects all of us, right? If life is aging. And I think traditionally the way that we talk about aging is that if you're young, it's not my problem. It's something over there. Well, that's not really the way that time works. Like I will be one of those people that we traditionally put over there. So I should be part of the conversation and talking about this, and we all should be part of all of the wonderful things that Annabelle is just saying over here, of embracing the amazing resources that exist in humanity.
I mean, I agreed. The only thing I'll add on there is just from my lens of thinking about this in terms of work lifespan. You know, the more information that we have, the better decisions that we can make. And a lot of times young people, or at least my students that I work with, They're really kind of caught in this feeling that a career decision is a one-time decision that I make. It's incredibly important, incredibly stressful, and there's a lot of fear. What if I make the wrong choice? What if I choose the wrong path? Then I'm gonna mess up the rest of my life, or I'm not going to have this happy, prosperous future that I desire for myself. I'll never realize my true potential. And it can really freeze people and prevent them from taking any kind of action. So when we start to really think about the time frame that you have to be thinking about what you might do for work, what kind of relationships you might have, how you might live in the world, and say, hey, it's way longer than you've been thinking about. And it's not just one decision, it's lots of decisions you get to make over and over and over again. And you can reinvent yourself and recreate yourself and try new things. So don't worry if you don't get it right this time, because you're still learning and you're still growing, and you can make a different decision, and you can take all the assets that you learned that first time around and bring them with you into the next one. And I think that can help reduce some of that fear and anxiety and open us up to more creative decision making. So I think it's great for younger people to be thinking that longer term in a really empowering way. So you're not a victim to sort of the social pressures and the economy that we live in. You're empowered to make all kinds of choices for yourself. From a place of curiosity and meaning, rather than just reactivity. So,
Thank you very much. Yeah. So Sarah, when kind of following up what you said, when you're advising COCC students or teaching career planning, are they thinking about their possible 80 years of age?
Rarely.
And how they prepare for that?
Rarely. I mean, the beauty of teaching at a community college is I get to work with students from all different walks of life, right? I get students who are coming back to school after having careers, after having families. I have students who are still in high school. I have students who are at traditional college age. So, I will say maybe some of my older students have that sense of I'm deciding to come back now because I realize I could be doing enjoyable, meaningful, productive work for longer than maybe I had thought. So some of those students are, but the vast majority of my students aren't really thinking I can see myself as an 80-year-old working. They're more thinking about where they are right now. But I do think that they are, when I do talk to them about this concept of, hey, you might be working longer than you think, or your work life and your career is going to span your whole lifespan, right? Even when you're quote unquote retired, you still might be working and contributing, just in different ways, right? It may not be paid employment, or it might be, but it might look different than what you're thinking about in your 20s. Nevertheless, I think helping students to conceive of what does that conversation with yourself look like, right? Those questions that were on the screen about purpose. I don't know if any of you, like me, just had that moment of, wait a minute, can I answer those questions? What is my purpose? We sometimes, again, think that that's, we all have one calling or we have one purpose and we just got to figure that one thing out. I think that's a fallacy. We have lots of purposes. We have lots of meanings. It's a continuous ongoing conversation that we have. So getting skilled at being able to ask yourself those questions. Well, what do I need in my life right now? What are the skills that I have? Who out there needs those skills? Who's willing to pay me for those skills? Where are ways that I can find out about opportunities to put my skills to use in the world, right? Helping students get better at asking themselves those questions and helping them be able to navigate is a real skill that will help them have long-term adaptability and success in the marketplace. The other thing I would say about thinking about that lifespan being longer as well is I notice our students are more attuned to issues of health than maybe I was in my youth. And I don't just mean physical health, because I think, when you're 18, you do to some extent think you're somewhat indestructible, but rather global health, right? Holistic health. Our students are much more interested in thinking about wellness and mental health and being attentive to that and taking care of it and practicing self-care and having good habits around that. They're far more interested in environmental health and sustainability and thinking about what would it mean to live on this planet for another 100 years and how do we maintain it and keep it healthy so it can sustain us. they're interested in financial health. And what does our economy look like? And how do I afford the things that I need for shelter and health and happiness in my future, right? So I think they're looking at things holistically. So being able to have those conversations can be really productive as well.
Thank you very much. Sierra, can you tell us about the mission of Bridge Meadows and how that fits in to the 100-year life?
Big question, thank you. So Bridge Meadows is an intergenerational affordable housing community-based model. And I know that's a lot of words that I just said there, but basically what that means is we build neighborhoods that are specifically for families that have been impacted by foster care, and then retirement age folks, so folks over the age of 55. For a lot of reasons, the age is at 55. I won't bore you with all of the zoning requirements that go into that. And the core idea of the model is something that we heard in Dr. Kaiser's presentation, and that is purpose and belonging. One of the things that I have learned that I think I'll carry with me until the day that I die is fundamental to life satisfaction, to life success, whatever that looks like, is a sense of community, of finding your people. I saw the word, finding your tribe up here. And what gets you out of the bed in the morning? What gets you excited to go on that next adventure of life? And that's sort of what Bridge Meadows focuses on. And one of the things that I hear all the time from the elders when I go into the office is they come up to me and they say, Sierra, before I moved into Bridge Meadows, I was really isolated. My family lives across the country because my kids moved for work, or they moved for family, or they moved for education. I'm alone here. And I was really isolated. And we know that isolation is incredibly harmful to mental health. Vivek Murthy, the US Surgeon General, came out with a report a few years ago that's since been updated that shows that social isolation and loneliness, that the health impacts can be as disastrous as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. And just wrap your mind around that. Being lonely can be as impactful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So these elders who come up to me and they say, I have a reason to get out of bed right now. I have a reason, I have excitement to go to this activity with these kiddos where I'm teaching them how to read. Or we have a knitting group that gets together every Thursday, and we are knitting masks for local, nurses. In the beginning of the pandemic, that was one of the activities that happened. And to see the way that purpose and that sense of community completely changes their perspective on life, the joy that they have when they walk through the door, it's phenomenal. It's outstanding. I think my grandma actually lives at Bridge Meadows, so I have not only a professional connection to this model, but a personal connection. I think my grandma has a more active social life than I do right now, which is just, it's phenomenal. It's so exciting. And that's one of the things that I was really taking away during Dr. Kaiser's presentation is, and to copy what Sarah said, I think when we all hear purpose, like what is your purpose, that can get really like, oh my God, I don't know. I have to pick one thing, and it can be really overwhelming. But I think that it's an ever-evolving thing. Like, what is my purpose right now at this stage in my life? And if that is teaching a group of kids how to read, that's wonderful. If that's what makes you excited to get up and share your wisdom, share your resources, and mentor that next generation, like Dr. Kaiser was saying. I think that's really powerful if we can weave that culture into everything that we do here.
Thank you very much. I want to follow up a little bit. One of our mentors in our program with Sage in Portland, I was visiting with her. She's probably 85, 87 years of age. I said, what makes you do what you're doing? She says, well, when I wake up in the morning, I stay in bed a little bit. And I said, what? And she said, I'm quoting her, I said, what is my purpose today?
Yeah.
And she gets up. So this kind of notion about but purpose may be a day-by-day thing, but it also may be a lifetime kind of approach. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So Annabelle, you just got back from Ireland where you were speaking at a conference on age-friendly cities. Can you tell us what European or international cities are doing that the U.S. needs to be doing? Is Oregon doing any work on age-friendly cities?
Big question. All right. Well, first, let me talk a little bit about what age-friendly cities are. I'm not sure if we all know. The Age-Friendly Cities Initiative was launched by the World Health Organization as WHO was looking around the planet and realizing that aging is happening not just in the United States, but in developing and so-called developed countries. The whole planet is aging. So WHO sent out a team of, I think it was around 36 scientists, and they asked them to study cultures, societies around the world, and try to determine what are the domains, what are the characteristics of a community that supports vibrancy, vitality, health, longevity, the things that we find in so-called blue zones. So they did, and they came back, these scientists, I believe they studied communities for several years, and when they came back, they listed 8 domains of an age-friendly city. 4 of them are more structural and 4 of them are more interactional, but you can go online and just Google age-friendly cities and you'll just see what those domains are. So I'm the executive director for the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence. So you might guess, perhaps they're working in that domain, and yes, we are. What we do is we go to communities, cities, counties, states, and we study qualitatively and quantitatively what are the needs and the desires, the wishes of the older adults in that community. We try to get a representative sample, a diverse sample. And then we go to the community leaders, the city councils, the boards of supervisors, the mayors, and we say, these are the unmet needs of your older adult populations. These are their wishes. This is what they would like to see in the community. And that way, decision makers, elected officials, city planners, people like that, they can make really informed and targeted decisions about what do the older adults in that community really want. What do they really need? And so that is what we do. So when I was in Ireland, and what I do is, it's part of my spiritual practice, I guess, is I travel around the world at no cost to whomever I'm with, and I try to help them understand what an age-friendly city is, how do you plan it, how do you organize it, how do you put together a strategic plan to make it happen, and try to be of service to the older adults in places where I visit. So I get to travel a lot around the world, and I get to see what looks good and what doesn't, what works and what doesn't in terms of an age-friendly city. And there are excellent examples all over the world. And here in the United States, we're also working on age-friendly cities across the country. My recent work has been in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. I work with 18 cities in Santa Clara, and we're working with 20 cities in San Mateo right now. I would dearly love to work with Bend. I think that would be so cool if we could. How many people would be on a task force, I wonder? Okay, cool. All right, wonderful.
We're going to follow up, so.
Yeah, right.
So in Ireland, Dublin is the city that is considered age-friendly, and they try to advise cities in Europe about how to be age-friendly. And what they have done there is they are trying to reach out to persons in colleges and universities to encourage them to enter the field of gerontology and geriatrics. We are in desperate need of gerontologists and even more desperate need of geriatricians. And so they're trying to encourage their younger people to get involved in the joyful experience of working with older adults in both gerontology and geriatrics. And so I guess that's one of the main thrusts that's going on right now in Ireland, to bring and aggressively encourage young people to enter the field so they can learn the joys and the challenges of working with older adults.
Thank you very much. That's very good. So I'm going to ask another question, and that was that headline that I said that in the New York Times that really struck me. Without a college degree, life in America is staggeringly shorter. So, one, do you believe that?
I always believe the data.
Pardon?
I believe the science, I believe the evidence, I believe the data, yes.
The authors of that statement are the same individuals who coined the notion about the initiative of despair. Remember, that was in the number of suicides of adults in this country that gave up and in despair. So they're reputable folks, but what they said, it is hard to imagine that an educated elite can prosper indefinitely without a better future for everyone.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
how do we, it's a huge thing, because 2/3 of our country do not have a degree. So 1/3 do, and there's a life expectancy difference of about 6 years across the board without the degree. So we've got like two societies in a sense. So is it our responsibility? How do we think about that? And particularly maybe from a community college, and
Right.
people know each other.
Absolutely. Well, I belong to the school of thought of we create a community so that all the boats float. That's the philosophy that I believe in, and that's what the science says. If you haven't seen the Surgeon General's recent report on isolation and loneliness in America, I strongly urge you to download it. It's free. It's very accessible. I refer to it almost daily. The Surgeon General has come around with the data to understand, as well as other countries, especially in the United Kingdom, that we're experiencing right now an isolation and loneliness epidemic in the United States. And the most lonely people are our young people, followed our young adults, followed by persons in our age group here that are finding themselves isolated and lonely. There are a lot of things that we can do to address this epidemic, a lot we can do. And I think I would urge all of us here tonight to take a look at that study and ask yourself, what can I do? There are small things we can do and large things that we can engage in as singly and together. But I think if we could address that, isolation and loneliness, if we could address that public health emergency, in my view, I think we can address a lot of our public health problems. I really heartfelt believe that. So yes, take a look at that study and really ask yourselves, what can we do to help each other to create a more caring and loving, supportive, respectful community.
And I'll just address from the community college perspective, which is, working at an institution that is open access, where we have multiple places where community members can access training and education and learning, whether that be through short-term certificates or full degrees, or coming back for retraining, or joining community education classes or non-credit classes, right? We have it's very porous. Before I worked here, I worked at Division I university that was very competitive entry. So it's really exciting to be here and see people accessing education, knowledge, training, retraining at various levels. I would say, though, one question I have about the tying together of college degrees and life expectancies. For a long time, a college degree has been used as sort of a marker for other things, right? Things like privilege, things like economic mobility, things like maybe even geographic, certain health factors, right? It's really not necessarily the education itself, although as an educator, I believe that education in and of itself, as we're using our brains, being excited, being curious, I do think that is connected to longevity. But I think in this instance, really what we're talking about is social inequality, not necessarily the college degree. So while I think it's a great idea to have more access to education for everyone who wants it, I also know that there are lots of ways that people can receive training and learning and education that don't involve college, right? And so I think there needs to be some acknowledgement that there isn't something magical about going to a university or being in college that inoculates you against poor health outcomes, but it's living a life where you have a sense of empowerment, where you have a sense of connection, where you are thinking more broadly than just your own experience, where you have a connection to your community, where you see yourself as an active, engaged citizen, where you're learning and growing, right? Those might be more of the things that are connected with lifespan. So your question, so how do we address this? I mean, certainly what Annabelle was saying about paying attention to the health and isolation and loneliness, but also maybe thinking about, what does social equality look like in our country, and are things that we can do to make things more equitable for everyone. I think that might have an impact on lifespan as well.
Thank you. So are there any questions or comments in the audience? Yes.
The whole thing?
I can hold this part.
Okay, sounds good. Just wondering if you could all comment on what Bend, Oregon should be doing to become a more age-friendly city.
Well, I'm a scientist, so I always start with the science. I think we would want to reach out. AARP has an excellent survey that they deploy to cities to find out what the older adult population wants and needs in that city or that community. I'm a firm believer in qualitative data, so I would want to conduct some focus groups. Here's one right here. To try and using the questions, the evidence-based questions about an age-friendly city, and find out, what do people want? What do people need? What are the unmet needs? What are the desires of older adults in the community? And then you're standing on data, you're standing on evidence. And then you can start launching projects and programs that are appropriate for that community and for that city. And the cities that we've worked with through the center, that's exactly what we do. We find out what are the unmet needs, and they're different. And what are the wishes and desires, and they're different, and depending on different segments of the population. And then we make those recommendations to the city leaders about what might happen. So that would be the process that we would engage in Bend. And I live in Bend. I live at the old mill. I would dearly love to do that here. I think it would be so cool for Bend to become an age-friendly city.
Thank you.
Can
go ahead.
I would also say being here, I believe that just by being here, you are on the step of accomplishing the things that Annabelle just said. That shows that you're taking ownership over the things that we're talking about here. Like, you are an agent of change. I firmly believe that each individual person, and more importantly, collectively, we can be agents of change. And by being here, you are on that step. So when you leave here today, don't let that enthusiasm and energy fizzle out when you leave. Keep it going, keep talking to folks, make a friend with somebody who's a lot younger than you, a buddy, and live your life in a way that brings yourself passion, because the best way that we can educate young folks, right, is by seeing by living what we do, because we learn by watching other people. So if, you have a little kiddo in your life and you decide that you really want to go back to school and get that degree or do that trade program, or you just want to take an art class because you just really want to explore that, a kiddo in your life is going to see that and say, like like Sarah was saying, oh, I can explore my passions at any age of life. I am constantly growing, evolving, changing. So just be amazing people and role models for the rest of the folks in your life.
Thank you. So, how many of you know people that are 100 years of age or older? Wonderful. So, the next question is, how many of you aspire to live to 100? Well, if I ask it another way, how many of you aspire to live healthily to 100? So when we talk about all of this, and there's a story goes around about Japan, that they have made it an official part of the government. They're not to talk about life expectancy, but healthy life expectancy, and to create whatever those programs are. But it's not just about medical kind of related stuff. It's about sort of back to age-friendly cities. It's about the resource that older people are, so that they're valued in the society, so that this sense of well-being is part of their lives. So that, just to think about that, and you notice Japan had the second highest life expectancy in the world. Now they eat a little different than we do. I think that's fairly obvious. So are there any other comments or questions? Yes, just say.
So one of the things that seems to be popping up over and over is the young people feel discouraged at the cost of living nowadays, and they kind of feel like there's no hope. And so I think that that's causing a ripple effect throughout everything. And we've been in situations where it looked bad before the unions were invented, shall we say, and that was a grassroots type of thing. I think nowadays we have the 1% that's taking whatever it is, 90-something% of the wealth, and the other 99% are getting whatever's left over. That needs to be fixed probably from a grassroots level somehow, similar to the unions. That idea, where we make it more equitable for everyone and make it worthwhile for everybody to strive and go to work and try. And I hope that's in the thinking along these lines. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And to piggyback on my previous comment, share the wisdom and the experience that you have with folks who are in the industry trying to make those changes. I am constantly in shock and awe and just, I don't know, a bunch of incredible emotions when I hear the elders that I work with at Bridge Meadows telling stories of, I was talking to some elder a couple of weeks ago who was telling me about when she used to work in the Clinton administration. And I was like, oh my God, Ruth, that's incredible. Tell me more. Tell me what you learned, so that, sharing the wisdom. That's what life is about, right? Collecting wisdom, collecting experiences that we can pass on. And like Dr. Kaiser was saying, to improve things for future generations.
Thank you for that.
come from a jaded place because I work with young people that come from extreme trauma and addiction and things. And you talked about loneliness and like lack of connection, which I think is huge. And with young people, there's this desperate need for connection, yet they're attempting to get connection via things like social media, and yet they feel totally disconnected and alone. And then you have contribution to suicide rates among young people, which is very high. And I think that ties into loneliness and maybe disconnection from the aging people in the community or society. So what are your, because I see the population in this room, I don't know where anybody comes from, but what can you say about this life? And you talked about like it's a ripple effect, like our life is purpose for also for the newer, younger generations. I'm getting emotional because of what I see every day. So what do you have to say for people? It's great. I think we have a great aging community in this. Personally, I'm a Zumba teacher, and most of my people, that's my side gig, and they're like aging, and they have these communities and purpose and energy, and we have, I believe, a lot of lovely things in this community. But how can those amazing people I see give or help bring alongside this younger generation to want to aspire to the things that you talked about, you speak of with your college students? That's enough.
Thank you.
Oh, well, she referenced your
Yeah.
college students. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how to frame the response. So I agree with what you're saying in terms of we do see disconnect between the skill set of how to connect with other people. And we've just come out of a pandemic where our students were learning through a screen, and all of their human interactions were happening in a distance way. One thing that I see and I know is that skills can be taught and skills can be improved with practice and with effort. So I think we, as humans, we have a need to connect with each other, but we don't always necessarily know how to do that, especially in our current society. So I think any efforts that we can have at wherever, whether it's in schools or in our communities or in our spiritual communities or in workplaces, where we can help people learn the skills of how to connect with other people, how to have a conversation, how to deal with someone not wanting to talk to you, how to pursue friendships, how to be a good friend. I think as a society, we have an obligation to teach those skills and encourage people to keep practicing them. I think, and this is maybe my perspective and not necessarily research, sometimes it can feel much easier and much safer to have relationships online or with an intermediary of technology because they're not real. And real relationships can be hard and they can be messy. And so the encouragement to keep going and keep trying and keep finding your place and helping people, modeling it, as Sierra was saying, providing opportunities in our city, kind of as Annabelle was saying, for people to connect physically. But seeing that, the workplace is a place where that happens, where people across generations can meet and can collaborate and can talk and can communicate. So, as someone who kind of looks at and studies the world of work, I see there's really great potential in the world of work to help support and teach people social skills, soft skills, interpersonal skills that can help them be successful in work, but also maybe carry over in life. So I don't know that fully addresses your question, because I think you're right, that's a thorny issue.
Yeah.
But I do think that just, again, providing more opportunities for people to practice those skills, I have hope that we can all get better. And I would also say, being a young person, it's hard. I mean, we can all think back to our teenage years, and that's hard. That's a hard time. Not even putting everything else on top of it, trauma, generational trauma, the world that we live in now, right? All those other things that are on top of it. It makes it a really, really challenging time. So I think also just holding empathy in our hearts for the challenges that young people are facing. Whether that has an actual physical impact on them or not, I'd like to believe that it does.
Yeah. There are some international programs, and there are in the U.S. as well, of bringing young people that need housing and older adults that have housing opportunities, and also purpose-built communities, apartments and condos that are made available for older adults and young people together. If you'll speak with me after the session here, I'll give you my email address and I'll send you a list of links of these programs. There's also another wonderful one that matches up single parents with each other, so they can be supportive and helpful and caring for their children. And I have those links as well. And these are prospering programs. So if you'll get with me afterward, I'll give you my email address and I'll send you those links. And you can find them around the world and around the U.S.
Including in Oregon. So a little bit of a shameless plug. One of the other roles that I sort of bring to this conversation is I'm an AmeriCorps Vista alum. For those of you who don't know what AmeriCorps is, it's it's a Peace Corps model, but it's domestic. And I serve on the commission that distributes the grant funds across the state of Oregon and generally promotes volunteerism in Oregon. And one of the things that we've been able to accomplish in the last couple of years is we were selected along with 2 other states in the whole country, so there's only 3 of us, to pilot a program with Silver Nest. And the goal of this, and this is me really pushing the intergenerational model into everything, every conversation that I have, the goal of the Silver Nest program is to pair up AmeriCorps volunteers who are paid a stipend that's below the minimum wage. It's a poverty wage is essentially what it is. Pairing those folks up who need housing with, for example, an older adult who has a couple of spare bedrooms because they're an empty nester now. So they would have a lower rent. They would have a connection because there would just be somebody else in their house that they have dinner with every night, or helping mow the lawn, or sharing wisdom or whatever. And that's just one example of something that Oregon is leading the charge on, some of the intergenerational housing models to address a lot of the challenges that we're talking about right now. So there's hope. There's a lot of great programs out there. Yep.
I want to say, Betsy and I come from an era of higher education where part of our attendance and participation was to think about their own lives of service. And we developed within those institutions both opportunities and requirements of connecting with the community and people in the community, so that there's a way of thinking about that to use our existing organizations where we have a lot of younger people, whether they're 35 young or 18 young, to think about those kinds of connections. But on the other side, we run a mentoring program for middle school people with SAGE, but we find it sometimes difficult to find older adults who are willing to spend a half an hour a week with a child. So it's like, is that who we are as a society? And bring those together. But there are societal organizations, whether it's higher education or whether it's a church, that can develop those kinds of relationships. Now, one thing we didn't talk about today is some folks believe that there are some biases against elders, whether that's in the workforce or whether that's in these relationships. What do they know? or if that's an era that's past, or whatever that is. And I know for myself that in our mentoring program that we had when we tried to recruit mentors from older folks, some folks said, these kids, they don't care about older people. If you're going to do mentoring, it's going to have to be young persons, this kind of thing. So we have a lot of work as a society, but part of the dilemma of this is that society is getting older. It isn't as if we're flooding the world with a whole batch of younger people, in terms of proportions, at least. But use the organizations that you know about to say, we've got people that are lonely. We have kids that don't know how to read. Can that be part of what this organization stands for? So any other?
Okay, we have time. We're pretty much out of time, but we have a question here. And out of respect for all of your time, if it's time to go, if you need to go, please feel free to excuse yourself.
Oh, that's it.
Sorry, it's a little awkward.
So I'd be interested to hear your reaction to something I'm going to share with you that's both personal and something I've observed. And that is a young graduate student, that's 50 years ago, now you know how old I am. And I ran across an article in Scientific American on ice core in Greenland. And it flagged me that we had something coming at us called climate change. And that was before it became something known and common knowledge. And so that's been with me all this time, and I've seen it evolve to be a very real and serious thing. Then I've noticed something in the youth that gives me encouragement. That is Greta Thunberg and what she's been doing. And the youth in Montana taking on, legally, trying to challenge the fossil fuel industry to deal with it. So I see hope, although I'm extremely pessimistic whether we're going to overcome what I think is going to be one of the most serious challenges the human race has faced in its history. But I'd like to know your reaction to that as far as what you see youth and their reaction to climate change, which of course would be very troubling, but also do you see them having any hope?
Hold it for you.
I see a great deal of hope in our young people. My husband is a Coro graduate, and it's very interesting. You might want to look it up. It's CORO. Doesn't mean anything. But they started a group for people graduating from high school. It's usually for graduates of college. And they started a group of people, much younger people, in the inner city. And I mentored a couple of them. One was a gang member. In fact, he was the head of one of the gangs in downtown Oakland. And by the time he was done with the course, he had his whole gang doing volunteer work. And he wanted to make things better, not worse. And that came out of almost everybody that I've seen that's a young person. So I have a great deal of hope. If we can get these old people out of Congress.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back here. Yes.
Thank you for that comment, and I'm an 83-year-old young person, just to be clear. So I got up to say a few things, but the last few comments really did start to address it, and that is the reintegration in our communities of all aspects of our society by both ethnicity, disability, etc., and age. They're linked. And the one other comment I would make is I think it's really important in these conversations to recognize that these conversations are largely about re-engineering aging, or in this instance, and not about what has produced the way in which we are aging and our populations are aging. And I think if we go there, Dean Kaiser, this is Dalton.
Yep.
Okay.
He was my dean.
Yeah. So,
So please continue these conversations, but also include etiology. How do we get here? What is producing our notions of aging?
Yeah,
And that's, we have to also address, it seems to me.
for sure.
I so appreciate all of those comments, and I'll just say that I think that we all have a responsibility, going back to what we're talking about the hope and climate change and these really large issues that seem really daunting. I think that the only way that those challenges can be resolved is if we all work together, because we all live on this planet. It doesn't matter what age we are, we all live on this planet. And dispelling, and each of us, I think, have a role in dispelling this idea that elders cause the problem and therefore don't deserve to be part of the solution. I don't think that that's fair or helpful at all, or that young people don't care because they're too busy partying or whatever whatever the stereotype might be. Whatever we can do to help the people in our lives get rid of those stereotypes and realize that the only way that we can solve these issues is by working together. And I know that sounds really like hokey and rosy-eyed, but I really do believe that. And maybe that's because I'm only 27 and I have a lot of life to live yet, but I believe that. I really do. And I appreciate you all being here and the comments that you're making about that.
Thank you, yes.
one of the pieces, David Brooks said, as we get older, we have the opportunity to be generative, which means we support those that are coming after us. But the other one, he said, he called these eulogy virtues. So if you're thinking about your eulogy, he said, we have the opportunity to leave a legacy. And so part of that is not for elders to go quietly, it seems to me. What is it that are these kind of issues that are out there? To take the energy, whatever that energy is, and not kind of walk away, but to say, I want to be remembered. I want to have that cause that I so believed in, that's what people think about me. It's so we're not interested, as he says, in building your resume at a certain age. What we are interested in is this kind of notions of generativity. That is, we're going to leave the world better than we found it, and then we become part of that legacy of what that looks like. I think that's the virtue, in a way, of what it means to live this 100-year life. And I wish that in my mind for all of us. One of my dearest friends at Mary's Woods just passed away at 103. He was so proud to be 103. And he would regale me with his service as an Army pilot in the Second World War. That was his legacy, that he wanted all of us that kind of level of service to be given to the rest of us. And I think that's the possibility. So it is about a certain gift of years that we've been given. If I may, at a personal level, when I was looking at life expectancy, my father was born in 1909. He died at the age 51, which was life expectancy exactly when he passed away. If he were alive today, he could be part of 2 decades, 3 more decades. That's the gift that we have received. But for what purpose? That's the legacy.
I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Dr. Kaiser. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sierra. And thank you, Annabelle. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.